If you are listening to this right now, you have probably encountered a very specific and honestly very common approach to prayer.
Oh, definitely. It's everywhere.
Right. It's this underlying expectation that prayer is essentially a transaction. Like, you figure out what you need, you formulate your request, and you drop it into the heavenly vending machine.
Yep, you just pull the lever of faith and, you wait for your circumstances to change.
Exactly. And I mean, it is incredibly appealing because it feels manageable.
It does. It gives us this sense of control over the unpredictable parts of our lives.
Yeah.
You do X, God does Y, and, well, the math just works out.
But then, you find yourself in a situation that completely shatters that math.
Yeah, the math just falls apart.
You're, say, sitting in a sterile hospital waiting room, and you are absolutely terrified of what the oncologists are going to say when they walk through that door.
Or you're staring at a bank account with a zero balance.
Right. Or you're watching a marriage fracture right in front of you despite, years of counseling. And in those moments, you are just terrified of what the future holds.
Because you desperately want God to change your circumstances.
You just want the pain to stop.
Yeah.
And when the vending machine doesn't dispense the miracle, I mean, it feels like the whole system is broken.
And that right there is the breaking point for so many people. Because, what do you do when you are praying with everything you have and the circumstances simply aren't changing?
Where does your faith go when the formula fails?
Exactly.
And that tension, that exact question, is the entire mission of today's deep dive.
I am really looking forward to unpacking this one.
Me too. So we are spending our time today unpacking Chapter 8 of Dev Raku's book, Armed with Grace, Winning the Spiritual Battles You Never Saw Coming.
Which is such a profound resource.
It really is. And we've looked at other parts of this text before, right? Like how prayer is a weapon, or how it functions as a plea for intervention.
Yeah, we covered those in earlier deep dives.
But today, we're exploring what the author really frames as the emotional and spiritual climax of the book's teachings on prayer. We are looking at the most difficult, the most profound type of prayer a person can ever pray.
The Gethsemane prayer.
Right, the prayer of surrender.
And I think we should probably set some expectations right away for you listening.
Good idea.
Because if you came here looking for simplistic, bumper sticker theology, you really won't find it in this chapter.
Yeah, definitely not.
There are no emotionally dismissive cliches here about how everything happens for a reason, or, God just needed another angel.
Right. None of that.
Yeah.
The author is taking us into a reverent, profoundly honest look at how you actually entrust your deepest desires to God when you are paralyzed by the fear of what comes next.
And before we can even talk about surrendering to God, we really have to talk about what it is we are handing over.
Which is our pain.
Yes. And reading through this chapter, the text makes it clear that surrender requires a level of unfiltered honesty about our pain that, frankly, makes a lot of modern believers very uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely. So the author takes us straight to the Garden of Gethsemane with Jesus the night before his crucifixion.
Right into the heavy stuff.
Yeah. Now, I have read the accounts in Matthew and Luke dozens of times, and I always read the part about Jesus sweating drops of blood, and honestly, I just assumed it was ancient poetic exaggeration.
Like a metaphor for being super stressed out.
Exactly. Just, a vivid way of saying he was having a really bad night.
But the author actually zeroes in on the Greek word used in Luke's account to describe that moment. The word is agonia.
Agonia.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's where we get the English word agony. But in the original context, it describes the severe distress and profound struggle of an athlete before a literal fight to the death.
Wow. A fight to the death.
Right. So the text highlights that Jesus was in such intense, sheer emotional anguish that his physical body reacted to it.
Wait, really? So it wasn't just a metaphor?
No, it wasn't poetry at all. It was a documented medical phenomenon called hemididrosis. It's where extreme psychological trauma causes the capillaries in the sweat glands to literally burst and mix with sweat.
Okay, I have to pause there because I think I have been getting this wrong my whole life.
How so?
Well, a lot of us operate under this unspoken rule that we have to put on a brave Christian face when we talk to God.
Oh, the spiritual job interview.
Yes. We act as if prayer is exactly that, a job interview. You sit up straight, you hide your weaknesses, you highlight your strengths, and you definitely don't let the interviewer see you sweat.
Right, because we think saying, God, I am angry, or God, I am terrified right now, is somehow an insult to his sovereignty.
Exactly. We think it shows a lack of faith to be scared.
But that assumption is completely dismantled by what happens in Gethsemane. I mean, if we look at the theological implications here, They are staggering.
Because Jesus is the sinless Son of God.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
He never once stepped out of the will of the Father. And yet, he experienced total, crushing physical agony.
Wow.
Which means that experiencing profound emotional distress is not a sin.
That is so freeing to hear.
It really is. It is not a lack of faith to be in pain. It is not a spiritual failure to feel terrified.
You know, the text references a woman who told her counselor she couldn't tell God what she was really feeling. She was afraid he would be disappointed in her lack of faith.
And the counselor's response to her was brilliant.
It really was. He said, he already knows what you're feeling. You're not informing him. You're inviting him in.
You're inviting him in. That distinction changes everything about how we approach the divine. You aren't giving God a status update he didn't already have.
Right. He's omniscient. He knows you're scared.
Exactly. So faith does not require pretending that suffering doesn't hurt. We see this all throughout Scripture.
Like in Psalm 42.
Yes, Psalm 42, where the writer is openly questioning his own despair, asking, "Why are you downcast, O my soul?"
He's just putting it all out there.
Yeah, and Jesus didn't pretend he was fine either. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 5, it says Jesus offered up prayers with fervent cries and tears.
Fervent cries and tears, not exactly a stoic, quiet prayer.
Not at all. He was entirely honest with the Father about the horror of what was coming. Honesty is the absolute prerequisite for surrender.
Because you cannot surrender a fear that you refuse to acknowledge even exists.
Exactly. You have to name it to hand it over.
But, you know, if we just stop at honesty, this is really just a story about venting, right? Like, how does Jesus move from that raw panic to actual surrender?
Well, the text points out exactly what Jesus honestly asked for.
Right. Because he didn't just sit in the garden and passively accept the upcoming torture.
No, he explicitly asked for a way out. Luke 22 says, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me."
He asked for the cup to pass. He made his preference known.
Yes, he did not suppress his human desire to avoid being crucified.
Which really challenges a very common misconception about submission.
It does. Often we think faith means just quietly accepting whatever hardship comes our way without a single word of protest.
Like, we just have to grit our teeth and take it.
Right, we confuse biblical surrender with stoicism. But Jesus, who is our ultimate model for what perfect faith looks like, asked for the hardship to be removed.
He essentially said, I do not want to do this. If there is any other way to accomplish this mission, let's take that other path.
I think we need to linger on that for a second.
Well, I actually want to push back on this a little bit because this is where my own theology kind of gets tangled up.
Oh, except angle it.
So if God is entirely sovereign and he already knows what is going to happen, isn't it almost arrogant to ask him to change the script?
It can feel that way, sure.
Doesn't asking God to remove a hardship show a lack of trust in his plan? Like, shouldn't we just immediately accept our lot in life?
I mean, it is a completely natural fear to feel like asking for a change is a sign of rebellion, but the author argues the exact opposite. Yes, asking God for a different outcome is actually a bold act of faith.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Well, believers are supposed to pray boldly for healing, for financial provision, for broken relationships to be restored. When you ask God to change a seemingly impossible situation, you are actively declaring your belief that he actually has the power to change it.
Oh, I see. You are exercising faith in his capability.
Exactly. You're saying, I know you can do this.
So because Jesus knew the Father actually had the power to stop the crucifixion, he asked him to.
Right. He stated his preference clearly. It proves that true biblical prayer includes honest desire.
Which means you are allowed to say, God, I desperately want this illness to go away, or I desperately want this job. You don't have to suppress your desires to be considered spiritual.
Not at all. But, and this is the crucial element, is what happens next. The Gethsemane prayer doesn't end with the request for the cup to pass.
Right. He makes a pivot. And this transition is what redefines true faith.
Let's look at the second half of that verse in Luke 22.
Yeah, it says, yet not my will, but yours be done.
The author emphasizes that the word yet is the hinge point.
The yet. I love that.
It's the bridge between what Jesus wanted in his humanity and what he trusted in his divinity.
That single word changes the trajectory of human history, doesn't it?
It shifts the entire prayer from a request for a specific outcome into a declaration of absolute trust.
I was thinking about how to visualize this mechanism of trust, and honestly, the old cliche of, handing over the steering wheel of your life, just doesn't capture the weight of it for me.
Yeah, Jesus take the wheel is a bit overused. What's a better way to look at it?
Well, to me, it's more like being wheeled into a surgical operating room.
Okay, I'm tracking with you.
So you have this life-threatening condition, and the surgeon says they need to operate. Now, every instinct in your human body is screaming to avoid the pain of the knife.
Right. Nobody wants to be cut open.
Exactly. You do not want to be cut open. You might even ask the doctor, isn't there a pill I can take? Isn't there any other way we can fix this?
Stating your preference.
Exactly. But when they say no, surgery is the only way. Surrender is lying down on that table and letting them administer the anesthesia.
Wow.
It is saying, I do not want the pain of this process, but I trust your expertise to save my life more than I trust my own desire to avoid the knife.
That is a much more accurate parallel for what the author is describing.
It feels more costly than just handing over a steering wheel.
Because it is. Surrender places the final outcome entirely in God's hands, much like placing your physical life in the surgeon's hands. But notice that it doesn't erase your desire.
Right, you still don't want the knife.
That is a vital distinction. Surrender is not about achieving some enlightened state where you say, well, I guess I just don't care anymore.
It's not apathy.
No.
Yeah.
It is about placing your deep, incredibly valid desire beneath your trust in God's perfect wisdom.
Beneath your trust. That's good.
Surrender is not weakness. It is not fatalism or giving up. It is the highest form of active faith, saying, I trust your heart more than I trust my own comfort.
I still want this, but I want your will more. I mean, it is a beautiful concept when you are sitting in a comfortable armchair reading a book, but I have to be real here. It is agonizing in practice.
Oh, absolutely.
Because letting the surgeon cut you open still involves bleeding. When God's will actually hurts, the concept of surrender feels almost impossible.
And we have to confront the hardest truth of the Gethsemane prayer, which the text doesn't shy away from at all.
Which is what?
That surrender may come before your circumstances improve, or it may come when they do not improve at all.
That is a hard pill to swallow.
It is, because the modern church often sells a version of prayer where obedience always leads to immediate blessing or relief.
Right, the vending machine again.
Exactly. But Gethsemane shows us that sometimes obedience leads directly through suffering rather than around it.
The author shares a very personal, very raw story in the book that highlights this perfectly.
Yeah, that story was intense.
He talks about a season where a loved one was facing a serious health situation that required a highly risky medical procedure.
And he did exactly what we just talked about. He prayed passionately.
He was specific. He asked God to intervene, to miraculously heal them without the procedure, to provide the easier way out.
He was stating his preference. He was praying the bold prayer of faith.
Yes, but the easier path didn't open up. The miracle bypass didn't happen. The procedure remained completely necessary.
So what did he do?
Well, the author talks about having to pray the prayer of surrender. He had to let go of his insistence that his plan was the best plan.
He had to say, yet not my will.
Exactly. He had to watch someone he loved deeply walk into a risky, painful situation, trusting that God was holding the outcome, even if the outcome involved suffering.
And what this teaches us is that God's presence does not always mean an immediate escape hatch.
Right. It doesn't mean you get teleported out of the fire.
Think about the outcome of Gethsemane. Jesus prayed perfectly. He surrendered perfectly. He possessed absolute spiritual authority.
And he still went to the cross.
He still went to the cross. The prayer did not remove the mission.
So what did the prayer actually do then, if it didn't change the circumstance?
It strengthened him to endure it.
Ugh.
The text points out that Jesus entered the garden in agony, but he emerged from Gethsemane prepared to face his betrayers.
That's a huge shift in posture.
It is. Sometimes the answer to the prayer of surrender isn't an evacuation from the fire. Sometimes the answer is the supernatural strength to walk through the fire that remains.
Strength to walk through what remains. That is powerful.
Because surrender acknowledges that God sees an eternal picture that our limited eyes just cannot comprehend.
We only see a tiny fraction of the tapestry.
Right. It is costly and it involves real grief. But in the way God's grace operates, that suffering is never meaningless.
Okay, let's bring this down to the ground level. For you listening right now, how do you actually implement this in the trenches of your everyday life?
Let's get practical.
Because I want to challenge this idea of the peace that transcends understanding that the author brings up, from Romans 12 and Philippians. Let's say I'm dealing with a marriage that seems completely broken, or a child who is making incredibly destructive choices, or a terminal diagnosis.
Real world, everyday, heavy stuff.
Exactly. If I am supposed to surrender, does that mean I am just supposed to force myself to feel nothing? Like, how is handing over custody of something so massive actually practical when my heart is still racing and I'm still terrified?
But the author anchors the practical application in Philippians 4, verses 6 and 7.
Okay, what does that say again?
The passage says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God."
Present your requests.
The text zeroes in on that specific phrase. In the original language, present your requests means to transfer custody.
Transfer custody.
Yeah, think about dropping a heavy package off at a shipping counter.
Okay, like at the post office.
Exactly. You carried it into the building, it was heavy, it was your burden, but once you hand it across the counter and they scan the barcode, the liability shifts.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
It is now their responsibility to deliver it. You might still care deeply about the package, but the weight of it is no longer in your hands.
So the mechanism of peace isn't that you stop caring about the outcome.
No, not at all.
It's that you recognize you are no longer responsible for forcing the outcome to happen.
Exactly. You walk away lighter, not because the situation is resolved, but because the liability is shifted to someone who can actually handle it.
That makes so much sense. But we have to offer a massive caveat here, which the text is very careful to clarify.
Yes, this is so important. Surrender is active trust, not passive resignation.
Right. And it is never, under any circumstances, a justification for abuse, neglect, or avoiding practical action.
I am so glad you brought that up, because surrendering a health issue does not mean you throw away your medication or cancel your doctor's appointments.
No. Or surrendering a toxic or abusive marital conflict absolutely does not mean you stay in a dangerous situation and just accept it as God's will.
The text strongly affirms appropriate medical care, professional counseling, establishing physical safety, and taking practical action.
You do everything you responsibly can do.
Yes. You seek the right help, you establish the right boundaries, and then you transfer the custody of the ultimate outcome to God.
You make the doctor's appointment, but you surrender the diagnosis.
Exactly. You go to counseling, but you surrender the timeline of the healing.
Doing your part and letting God do his part. That is where the peace actually comes from.
It's a peace that doesn't make logical sense because the circumstances haven't been resolved yet, but your psychological state changes because the crushing weight of controlling the universe is finally off your shoulders.
You're not playing God anymore.
Exactly. And the text gives us a beautiful, practical template for what this everyday surrender sounds like.
Let's hear it.
It isn't a complex theological formula. It's a very raw, personal dialogue. It sounds like this. Father, this is what I want. This is what I fear. This is what hurts. But I trust you enough to place the outcome in your hands.
This is what I want. That's the radical honesty we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
This is what I fear. That's the vulnerability, the agonia, the agony.
Naming the fear.
And then, but I trust you enough to place the outcome in your hands. That is the yet not my will.
It takes immense courage to pray that way.
It really does.
It takes courage to admit what you really want, knowing full well you might not get it. And it takes even more courage to open your hands and let God decide what happens next.
But, as the author points out, when you finally let go of your insistence that you know best, you grab hold of the God who actually does.
You step out of the exhausting business of trying to run the world.
And you step into the rest of simply being a child of the King.
Which brings us right back to where we started today.
Sitting in that hospital waiting room.
Or staring at that empty bank account, feeling that absolute terror of the unknown.
We spend so much of our lives demanding an outcome, trying to white-knuckle our circumstances into submission, because we think we know exactly what needs to happen for us to be okay.
But some of the most powerful prayers in a believer's arsenal are not the ones that demand an outcome.
They're the ones that entrust the outcome to God.
Because when you demand an outcome, you are limiting God to your own imagination.
You're putting him in a box.
You are saying, the only way this story can be good is if it happens exactly the way I wrote it.
Right.
But when you entrust the outcome to him, you open the door for his perfect wisdom, even if it leads through a valley you would never have chosen for yourself.
I want to leave you listening with a new paradigm to think about today. Something to mull over that builds on everything we've just discussed.
I love a good provocative thought.
We naturally assume that getting exactly what we ask for is the ultimate sign of strong faith.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
The bigger the miracle, the bigger the faith.
But think about your own life. The times when God gave you exactly what you wanted the minute you asked for it. Did your faith actually grow in those moments?
Hmm.
Or does true, unbreakable faith only forge in the fires of surrender? If surrender is the highest form of active faith, it begs the question, are the prayers where God gave us exactly what we wanted actually the ones where our faith grew the least?
Wow. That is a challenging thought.
It flips the script, doesn't it?
It completely reorients how we view unanswered prayers. They aren't failures. They are invitations to a deeper level of trust.
Exactly. So we want to encourage you today to bring your deepest, most raw desires honestly before God.
Don't hide the ugly parts.
No, don't sanitize your fears. Tell him exactly what you want and exactly what terrifies you.
And then take a deep breath and pray with Jesus, yet not my will, but yours be done.
And if you want to dig deeper into these concepts, if you want to understand how to wield prayer not just as a comfort but as a vital part of your spiritual growth, we highly encourage you to pick up Armed with Grace.
Spend some time in chapter 8. The biblical teaching there is just profound.
It really is. The tension of whatever waiting room you are in right now might not disappear immediately.
The circumstances might still be daunting.
But you do not have to carry the liability of the outcome anymore. You can hand the package across the counter. You can trust the surgeon.
That's right.
Until next time, keep digging deep.